Yo guys, what is up? It's your boy JadeJonny back here with another video. Hi, how you doing? That was very sing-songy. I didn't expect to go sing-songy with it, but I did. Hey, sometimes you just gotta do it. So today I wanted to talk about the difference between confidence and arrogance. Confidence is key, is what the phrase is. Is confidence is key. You know why the phrase is not arrogance is key? Because arrogance is the worst thing you could possibly be. Now, confidence is when your trust in your abilities is high. You know that your abilities are good and that you are good. That is a good thing to be, is confident. Confidence is good. It's good to be confident. Arrogance is when you think that you are great. You think everything about you is great. You think you are great. Now, you'd be like, well, what's the difference between good and great? Good is when it's good. It's good enough. It's what you want to be. And it's where you want to be. Great is when you start to form a complex, right? Put it in perspective, really. Okay, put it in perspective. My playgroup, it's a running joke that I call myself godly, or back when I was younger, apparently I called myself Kami a lot because I ripped it from Dragon Ball Super Abridged, or Dragon Ball Abridged. I'd call myself Kami. I'd be like, call me Kami, and apparently I used to do that a lot when I was younger. Like, too many people have told me I used to do it for me to just be like, I never did that. So, it's a running joke that I think that I'm godlike, right? Inside my local, inside of my playgroups, right? It's a running joke that I think I'm godlike. I don't. I'm not arrogant. I'm not that arrogant. As a matter of fact, I'm hardly that confident. One of the few things that I am confident in is my abilities as a CCG player, not so much anything else. Like, I don't think I'm that good, in all honesty. I don't think I'm that great. I know I'm a lot more humble than I present myself to be. I'm not going to lie. I am a whole lot more humble than I present myself to be. But I do it, but I'm very confident in my abilities. That's something I am confident in, is my abilities. But I'm definitely not the top tier gun strategist that never loses. I definitely am nothing like that. I do wish to at one point be a top tier strategist in CCGs and video games. That would be nice. I mean, that would be. It takes a lot more time and effort than I have to put into it right now. But hey, arrogance is when you go, I am the defining authority, and I am the pinnacle of play, and I am a literal legend, right? You can always tell the difference between somebody who's really good, like who has the right to be arrogant, by the fact that they're confident, not arrogant. If you are arrogant, right, it means you've never been humbled. Meaning you have no right to be arrogant. It means that you haven't played at the level of play that you're attaining to you're attesting to the fact that you can play at. No player in any game whatsoever is going to be arrogant unless they have proven they have the right to be arrogant on a global stage, right? Take a look at Wolfglick, right? One of the uncontested best VGC players in the world. He is confident in his abilities to perform. However, he doesn't deny results. He doesn't. He will not pass the blame off onto other people if he does lose, unless there's circumstances where it's just like completely out of his control. Right? He is confident in his abilities to perform, but not to the point of arrogance, where he states that he is the objective best. He is undoubtedly one of the best, but he doesn't let that go to his head, and he doesn't show that it's gone to his head, right? Take a look at Ray Rizzo. He is a 3-time Pokemon World Champion, 3 consecutive years in a row, and he is classified as one of the GOATs of the Pokemon video game series. But he doesn't let that go to his head. As a matter of fact, he slowed down competing, and when he does compete, it is a huge spectacle because everyone's excited to see him play. But even then, he doesn't perform at the top tier echelon. Not saying that he doesn't perform, his performance is poor, but he doesn't always win, you know? And while he has the right to be arrogant, he could be arrogant. He could enter into a tournament and say, I'm going to flip and win this, right? Like undeniably he will win is what he has the right to say that. But he doesn't. He says, I'm going to perform. And if he does lose, he's humble about it. He doesn't go like, oh, I got sacked, and that's the only way that my opponent could ever think of ever beating me, right? Like he doesn't blame it on any other factor other than like his opponent playing better or him not performing to the utmost of his abilities. The difference between confident is arrogance, right? As a confident player, 9 times out of 10 will have the right to be arrogant. 1 times out of 10, it's going to be players like me who have been humbled. We have seen the level of play that is at the upper echelon of gameplay. We have experienced firsthand just the difference between the level of play between ourselves and better players. We understand firsthand the difference between the level of play. We have experienced that loss, and we have experienced, what we need to strive to be, because we have lost to it, we have played against it, and we have failed. We understand that we can improve. Arrogance tend to be the players who shouldn't even have the confidence. That's not saying, if you're arrogant, you don't have the right to be confident. But, probably half the time, if you look at an arrogant player, it's going to be people who have unproven abilities, who have probably only played at a local level, which nothing wrong with only playing at a local level. But if you're being arrogant, and you've only played at a local level, you haven't tested yourself at the true, you haven't tested yourself against the true level of play for your, viability. You haven't tested your mettle, basically, right? If you're confident in your gameplay, if you play every move perfectly and you're still losing, you're not playing perfectly. If you play every other move perfectly, or if you're playing every game perfectly, you learn every single matchup perfectly, and you're still losing, you're still failing to do at least something. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you your arrogance is unearned. 9 times out of 10, most people who are arrogant don't deserve the right to be arrogant, right? Take a look at leave gaming for a bit and take a look at Jake Paul, right? He is a multi-millionaire, maybe billionaire. I think it's just millionaire. Multi-millionaire who has won every single boxing match he's been in, right? His arrogance is deserved. That's deserved. That's earned. If Wolfglick wanted to come out tomorrow and be like, you losers, I'm better than all of you, and I am the pinnacle that all of you are striving to achieve, honestly, that's kind of earned. He could do that justifiably, and nobody could really say anything. But at the same time, if some guy from my locals did the exact same thing, right, and was like, I'm so god tier, I'm better than everyone else, and this same person is lost to me multiple times, you don't deserve that. I don't attend locals, so I can say this. I can say this, right, and not actually be talking about anybody because I don't attend locals of almost any game anymore, which is unfortunate because but genuinely, I genuinely don't have a person in mind, unjokingly, unbiasedly, on anything. I am literally thinking of a metaphorical situation, not a literal person. Do not think I'm attacking people at my locals. I love everybody that I attend my locals with. Even if they hate my guts, they are still friends in my eyes, even if they do not call me friends. So I'm not attacking anybody, to be clear. Just a metaphorical, made-up person. I could say the same about any person in a metaphorical, made-up playgroup in the middle of North Carolina, right? I don't, it doesn't change anything. It's just a made-up person. Love my locals. To be clear, just don't want anybody to think I'm targeting anybody in my locals, because I'm not. This video is literally just based off of something that happened at work, and it made me think of it, and it made me really we have to put up with players like this in the CCG world as well. I want to talk about this. So, just Keep in mind, not a real person that this conversation is about. But yeah. And honestly, the best players are usually the ones who are more humble, right? For example, now I am going to talk about somebody from my locals, right? Uh, my our scout for the MHA CCG is a very confident person in his abilities. However, in the build up to us going to Vegas regionals, he kept saying that he knew he was going to get destroyed. He kept saying like, "Oh, I'm going to lose. I'm not going to perform to the best of my abilities. Something bad is going to happen." I was saying the same thing, and everybody kept telling us, "You two are like the top tier players. You two are the greatest players," and I flat out told one of the main people who was like doing this, right? And I said, "You don't know what the fuck you're talking about." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "He understands. He has played against the top tier players. Just like I have played against top tier players in other CCGs, and I see how well, I performed against them." I was like, "We as a twosome, right? Understand the level of play we are at better than everybody else could ever possibly understand, right? Like if I take my rogue deck to locals and I win with my rogue deck, that says more about the people at my locals than it says about me, because I understand where I sit on a chart from 1 to 10. Just like our scout in MHA understood where he sits on a scale from 1 to 10. And he looked at he was like yeah, he understands. He was like, it's nothing about our level of play that has us concerned. It's everyone else's level of play. And so both of us ended up being right about how we would perform. And then I literally, to make it abundantly clear, neither my scout nor I are bad at MHA. Neither my scout or I are bad at universes. Both of us are equally adequate at the game. Maybe not on an equal level playing field. He might be a little better than me. I might be a little better than him. It's really on and off. Like, it does go back and forth, right, on who wins games. If we're talking universe and whole, technically he has a higher win record. But if we're talking just MHA limited, technically I have a higher win record. But we definitely agree that it does go back and forth, and that we're both at a roughly equal level playing field. So, but we knew going into the regionals, we were there to improve. We were there to get a better understanding of where we sat on the actual scale. We weren't there to win, because that's being arrogant. Nothing is your fault. Everything is your opponent's fault, or everything against luck's fault, or everything is outside factors' fault, right? Being confident is understanding that you still have room to improve, still have room to learn, but you understand that where you're at is adequate, not maybe adequately to stay, but it is an adequate skill level to understand where you sit, right? Like, to be okay with where you sit. You still want to improve, you still want to strive to improve, you still want to learn what you're doing wrong, you still want to, etc., right? But you understand that where you're sitting at, on average, is going to be higher than everyone else, which is why it's okay to be confident at that level of play. But you definitely understand that, there's still room that you can grow. Arrogance is where you're doing nothing wrong. Confidence is where you are confident in your ability, but you're willing to learn more. So that's really the difference between arrogance and confidence. And a full breakdown of the examples of how you are doing, right? Like if you're arrogant, right? You're not gonna take advice. You're not going to relook at your gameplay and see what you did wrong. Whereas if you're confident, you're open to advice, you're open to improvement, but you're also understandably, you also understand where you're sitting from, right? And then I guess there's also their humility as well. Humble players are honestly amazing. Like 9 times out of 10, a humble player will be on a scale from 1 to 10, probably around an 7 or 8, just because of the fact that they know, they believe themselves to be better than the best players, but they're better than the worst players, and they're better than the average players. So a lot of the times, a more humble player could be I just want us both to have fun. I don't really care about the result. Something like that, right? Like if a player like that honestly tends to be more on the better side of the game, because of the fact that they've lost to better players, but they're still there to have fun. It's just, I mean, honestly, the best kind of players in my opinion, to associate with are probably the confident players. For example, this is gonna be the last example of anything. Like I'm gonna end the video after this story, right? Okay, so RC and I, we used to work at the same gas station together, right? Well, he was talking to one of our regulars, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Jonathan plays Yu-Gi-Oh, and he's really good at it. He's like probably one of the best players I've ever met at it, right? Blah 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 blah, blah right?" And just he likes to brag about how good I am at games. He's done this to me like 4 times at this point, and each and every single time it pulls me into some shit that I don't expect to be in. Actually, no, not even. We're not even going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the guys from downstate. So he was playing COD, and he got grouped up with some people who live in Oklahoma, and they were like, "Oh yeah." They started talking about Magic, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're really good at Commander." And RC was like, "Hey, my roommate's really good at Commander," and I'm like, I'm at work right now or something like that. Like, I'm nowhere near him for this conversation. And he starts talking trash on my behalf. I'm like, again, I'm nowhere near here. I can't stop this. Next thing you know, he adds me to a group chat, and he's like, "Hey, these guys live in Oklahoma. They want to play Commander. Can we set up a time to go play Commander?" And I was like, I guess. Sure, why not? And the entire time they're talking trash, right? And they keep saying buzzwords like commander names that are buzzwords, right? I'm just sitting here, I'm like, oh, they might actually know what they're talking about, right? Like I'm okay, and they're acting very confident. 2 of them are acting kind of arrogant, but the most of them are acting confident. And I'm sitting here like, oh, okay. I look at RC, I'm like, so what level of play did you want me to bring? Because, like, I could bring my best decks, which, will objectively curb stomp most players, right? Or I can bring, more casual fun deck. And he was like, go the fuck all out. So I build Grinko, because Grinko is one of my favorite decks of all time. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So we get to their house, right? We get to their little like middle meetup sesh, right? And I'm like, they're all acting 2 of them are acting very arrogant. The other 2 are acting kind of confident, but not arrogant. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, let's do this. Shoveled up, ready to go. Sit down, and I win. Not even close. It was RC like blew up one of their cards to open up the availability for me to win the game, and I just ran from there. And he was like, and then all of them were like. And I was like, I don't think we understood the message. And they were like, oh, no, we weren't playing our real decks, though. And someone who says that, right? In Magic, sometimes that can reign true. But you're also deflecting blame. So I'm like, okay, well, get your real decks, because I'm not here to play some baby shit. You guys talking trash on Facebook, like, come on. And so we shuffle up, and I win. Again. And again. So I switch decks to Joyra, because I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is a little too high power level. Switch to Joyra, and Joyra takes a couple turns to turn off. It also has more counterplay to it. I mean, like, there's just a lot of things that can go wrong with Joyra, right? Well, almost immediately, one of them casts a card that says players can't draw more than 1 card a turn. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to sit this through, because maybe somebody will stupid and kill it. But, like, I'm honestly just done, so I'm just going to play on my Switch while you guys play. Turns will come back around me, and I'll be like, yeah, whatever, right? Because, I mean, like, what am I going to do? So, I end up losing that game. And they're like, okay, let's just stop playing actual Magic, because you're getting annoyed, and we're just going to play an actual game now, right? And I'm like, yeah, because like the entire time they're talking trash about like like the fact that I couldn't do anything, and I was like yeah, well, yeah, great, yeah, you played 1 card that turned off my entire deck, so here's a fucking cookie, right? Like I'm like yeah, whatever, I don't give a shit. I'm like, you guys already lost like 4 fucking games. The fuck do I care? Because I mean, to be fair, if Ashiok hits the board and someone who's playing Joyra, that Joyra player has every right in the world to be mad if they just cannot draw into removal. Like, if they can't get the fucking removal piece, like, you can't be mad at a Joyra player for being mad at that, I mean, and again, like, obviously, you're going to stop caring about the game, especially when everybody makes, like, a truce to not kill it. This is a very long story. But basically, they were acting very arrogant, and when they were when they had to come face to face with like what they were acting arrogant for, suddenly they started deflecting blame on it was this, it was that, it was this, it was that, it was this, it was that, right? Well, one of the arrogant players, we hung out with him again later on down the line, and I was playing Krinko, and he was playing the Locust God. Then we had RC and one of our other guys. He was new to the game. It was literally his first game ever. So I wiped out RC and the other guy, the Locust God, right, out of the game, and then I let the other guy win. And the Locust God guy was he was like okay, game 2, and so I wiped the entire table again. And he was like, game 3, I wiped the entire table again. And I'm like, and this, keep in mind, he was very arrogant when we first started talking. Now he understands, like, there's better, decks, there's better players, and there's people who are willing to put in the $60 to buy a mana vault. So it definitely did show them the, like, unless you play against a better player, you will never have a proper scale of where you sit, right? If you never play against a better player and you've attended large events, then at that point you have the right to be arrogant. But if you've attended large events and you've played against better players, then you know where you sit on a scale from 1 to 10. Like, it's just kind of something you learn through experience. For example, from a scale from 1 to 10, I consistently tell people I'm like a 7 to 8. You could argue a 9, but I think I'm around a mid 8, right? Whereas most players will, like, most players I know will classify me as a high 9, low 10, right? Like, they'll, like, say, like, you are the objective pinnacle for what we know. And I'm, like, sitting here, I'm like, I know what I am because I've played against what I'm not. If that makes sense. So, that being said, though, guys, do not be an arrogant asshole. Be a confident cuckold, or you could be just a humble human. One of the three. And if you guys know which one you want to be, tell me in the comment section below. Tell me arrogant asshole, confident cuckold, or a humble human down in the comment section below. I've been JadeJonny, and I'll be seeing you guys later in another video. Deuces.